I never thought danger would come from inside my own family. It started with a dinner and a single text message that told me, "Get up and go. Don't say anything." The light above the table felt too bright, almost blinding. Every shadow on their faces looked heavier than it should. I didn't know who I could trust. But I knew one thing: someone wanted me out of the way. And they almost succeeded. The risotto was still steaming when my phone buzzed next to the fork. "Get up and go. Don't say anything to your son." I read it twice, then let the screen dim on its own. Across the table, Mark held a smile the way a man holds his breath longer than feels natural. His new place in near Southside smelled like lemon polish and fresh paint, the kind of scent that says someone prepared a life for display. A glossy mailer peeked from under a fruit bowl on the counter, "Welcome back, Lone Star Casino." He'd flipped it face down, but I could still see the edge of a roulette wheel. "Dad," he said lightly, "try the water. Filter's new." I lifted the glass. The rim was cold. The water was cold and clean. The taste wasn't. He'd set the table too carefully. 2 wine glasses waited anyway. I haven't had wine in years and he knows it. Cloth napkins folded to points like little tents. A knife aligned with the plate as if he'd measured it. I glanced at the framed photo on the sideboard. Mark at 16, jersey muddied, holding up a football like a prize. I wasn't in the picture. I remembered being behind the camera that day, telling him to look at his mother and smile. I could still see the yellowed grass under our ankles, could still feel the roll of pride in my chest. It's a strange thing to sit in a room where your love once lived and not recognize the furniture it earned. The phone buzzed again in my pocket, softer against my coat. "Don't take the elevator." I set my napkin down the way a man places a tool he won't be needing anymore. My chair made a small sound on the wood. Mark's fork paused midair. "Restroom," I said, and found my voice as even as the table settings. He nodded too quickly. "Sure," he said. "It's down the hall." The hallway was neat and bare, a runner that hadn't learned to relax yet. The bathroom mirror gave me back an older man with a straight mouth, and a shirt cuff I'd ironed flat that afternoon. Under the fan's little rattle, I heard the soft clink of glass from the kitchen, like someone tapping a ring against a bottle. I let the water run just long enough to wash the sound clean. On my way past the living room, I touched the back of the couch, as if to steady myself, and kept walking. The door to the stairwell opened with a breath of colder air and the smell of dust and metal rails. I took the stairs down, 1 flight, then another, counting the landings. 1, 2. Somewhere in the building, a baby cried once, and instantly stopped. A couple on a balcony murmured about a dog and a plant, ordinary words that fell like rain on the edge of a fire. Outside, the evening held to the brick like warm skin. Cicadas started up in a tree I couldn't see. A yellow cab eased to the curb when I raised my hand. The driver wore a faded ball cap and a patient expression. "Benbrook," I told him, and he nodded, checking the rear view once with the calm of a man who has seen worse night stories than mine. The seat was clean and old, the vinyl warm from the day. I settled back and felt the first pulse of tired move through me, a slow hand over my eyes. It had been a long week, I told myself. New places can make an old man's bones heavy. The city slid by in small scenes. A girl tugging at her mother's sleeve in front of a laundromat. A teenager practicing a skateboard trick and failing it gracefully. A couple at a curbside table, leaning closer over a candle that refused to be brave in the breeze. My tongue felt chalky again. I swallowed. The taste stayed. In the rear view, the driver's eyes met mine for a second. He looked away politely, the way people do when they sense a wobble and don't want to shame it. I shifted my wrist, and the cuff brushed my cheek wet, faintly sweet. Wine? I hadn't lifted a wine glass. I saw Mark's hand in my mind, how he'd tipped the water pitcher, how the cold lip had slid against my sleeve as he set it down with too much care. "Sir?" the driver said softly. The edges of the streetlights blurred, haloed like they were underwater. I blinked once. The cab hummed steady and kind, a sound like a big cat sleeping. I tried to sit forward. The effort ran out half-finished. He touched the horn, just a quick, polite chirp at a yellow light. And then his voice came through a little farther away, gentle but firmer. "You okay back there?" I meant to answer. I meant to ask him to keep talking so I could use his voice like a rope. The chalk taste deepened, soft and powdery at the back of my throat. Outside the window, Fort Worth thinned to darker shapes, and a long stretch of road I knew by heart and couldn't name. I felt the weight come down the way afternoon rain does in July, certain, patient, without any need to argue. The last thing I saw was the driver's hand steady on the wheel. I woke to white light. Too flat, too strong. My eyes opened and closed against it like old shutters. There was a curtain beside me, drawn halfway, its track rasping with every shift of air. The room smelled of disinfectant and warm plastic. You went down hard. The driver stood there. Ray. His cap was in his hands now, brim twisted, his voice careful, like he was afraid I might break. He set a small paper slip on the tray table by my bed. Taxi fare, printed time and route. Didn't want to leave you on the curb, he said. Brought you here myself. I reached for the paper. My hand trembled before I even touched it. The numbers were neat, gray, steady. Something to hold. Proof. A nurse came, firm but kind. She pressed her fingers against my wrist. Not natural sleep, she said softly. Something put you under. Lucky he brought you quick. She gave me a cup of water. Cold, clean, no chalk. I drank half in one swallow, and felt the taste clear, like someone lifting fog off a field. I signed a release on a thin clipboard. The letters of my name bent sideways. But they were mine. She nodded. Took it back. Closed the curtain with a sound like a sigh. For a while I listened. A man coughed down the hall, deep and lonely. Somewhere a phone rang once and stopped. Shoes squeaked across polished tile. The world went on with its small, ordinary noises while I sat in its corner, awake again, but not by my own doing. Ray lingered a moment longer. You got someone to call? He asked. His eyes met mine, steady but not pressing. I shook my head. He patted his cap once. Put it back on. Rest. Paper's proof enough, he said, and walked out. The slip stayed on the table. I slid it closer. The edges cut neat against my fingertips. I folded it once, twice, careful, and tucked it into my wallet like something no one could take from me. I lay back. The ceiling light hummed, a flat insect sound. I counted the hums until the count didn't matter anymore. They had tried. Next time I'd be ready. The cab dropped me at my house near Benbrook just past midnight. The porch light I had left on glowed a tired yellow. The bulb buzzing faint, like a trapped insect. The air outside was warmer than I expected, heavy with the smell of cut grass from the neighbor's yard. Somewhere down the block, a sprinkler hissed and clicked. Families slept. I stood still a moment longer than I needed, the paper slip in my wallet pressing sharp against my side, as if reminding me I was still alive. I unlocked the door. The hallway smelled like dust and old wood polish. Everything was in place, the framed wedding photo of my late wife, the worn rug with a darker path down its middle, the lamp that leaned slightly to the right. It was the same house I had lived in for 30 years. Tonight, it felt borrowed. On the floor inside the door lay an envelope. Cream-colored, no stamp, my name in neat block letters. I bent slow, knees stiff, and picked it up. The flap was not sealed. Inside, one sheet of paper, typed clean, the words short and sharp. To make things easier, sign and return. No greeting, no closing. At the bottom my name was printed, Oliver Hayes, empty, waiting for my hand. I stared until the letters blurred. My own name looked like it belonged to someone else. I set the page down on the hall table. The glass bowl for keys beside it reflected the words like a mirror. My reflection bent across the line, a ghost already signing where I hadn't. I walked into the kitchen. The sink held a single plate from breakfast. The kettle still sat on the back burner, faint stain at its spout. I filled a glass from the tap. Swallowed. Waited. Just water. Only water. Out the window, the neighbor's house sat dark, shades drawn. But on their porch 2 bicycles leaned against each other, handles touching, as if whispering secrets. Life going on next door, safe and untroubled. While I stood alone at my counter holding a glass that suddenly felt too light. I turned the envelope over, nothing written on the back. Still, the air around it seemed to hum. The cab slip was still in my wallet. I touched it through the leather, the corner poking against my thumb. Proof. I sat at the table, the envelope in front of me, the slip pressed to my side. One asked for my name. The other had kept me alive. The clock in the living room ticked past 1. Every sound in the house felt louder, the pipes creaking, the fridge humming, the settling wood. I stayed still, listening, waiting, not sure for what. They wanted my signature. They wanted me gone. I leaned back in the chair. The envelope lay flat, patient, as if it could wait forever. The house was too quiet. The clock in the living room ticked, sharp and slow, like it wanted to remind me that time kept moving even when I could not. Then the phone rang. Not the cell in my coat pocket. The landline on the wall, the one I almost never used. The sound cut through the rooms, heavy and old, each ring hanging longer than the last. I lifted the receiver. The plastic felt cool, smooth from years of dusting more than dialing. Don't go back there, a voice said. Calm. Not hurried, not afraid. Just certain. Next time, you won't wake up. The line went dead. No name, no pause. Just silence. I stood holding the phone long after the tone had gone flat. My hand left a faint, damp print on the receiver when I set it down. The envelope still lay on the table, patient, waiting. I pressed my hand against it, as if to feel whether it was warm. It wasn't. I walked to the front window and pulled the curtain back just an inch. The street was empty. A lone street lamp buzzed. A cat darted under a parked car. Nothing unusual. Nothing I could point to. But someone had called. Someone new. I let the curtain fall shut. The house seemed smaller with it closed, the air heavier. From the neighbor's yard came a sudden burst of laughter, teenagers out late, talking low, one of them shouting a name before they all hushed. Their noise faded down the block until I could only hear my own fridge humming again. The envelope, the slip, the call. 3 pieces on the table in front of me, none of them asked for, all of them mine to keep now. I pressed the cab slip flatter inside my wallet, feeling the crease of it like a knife edge against the leather. They wanted me to sign, they wanted me gone. And somewhere out there, someone wanted me alive. I didn't know which one was worse. The night had not left me. It sat heavy in my chest when the gray light came, seeping through the blinds in dull strips. My body ached as though I'd carried something all night. I sat at the kitchen table with a half-filled mug of coffee, bitter, lukewarm. The envelope was still there, untouched, its corner bent where I had pressed it down the night before. Then the knock came. 3 short taps, steady, not a neighbor, not a stranger. I opened the door. Mark stood there, my son. His shirt was pressed too clean for early morning. His smile, too quick to rise. Dad, he said, stepping in before I could answer. You look tired. Didn't sleep? His eyes darted once at the hall table. The envelope. He didn't touch it. He didn't have to. I brought some groceries, he added, lifting a small paper bag. Apples on top, 2 red, 2 shiny, as if they belonged in a magazine. He set them on the counter without asking. The smell of coffee filled the silence. He looked at my cup, then at me. Careful with caffeine, Dad. Not good for your age. Maybe switch to tea. His tone was light, but his hands stayed folded tight in front of him, knuckles pale. I nodded once. Said nothing. He kept talking, as though silence was a wall he meant to break through. I've been thinking about making things simpler for you. Bills, paperwork, all that. You shouldn't have to worry. You just sign. I'll handle the rest. My chest tightened, not from age. His voice was steady, smooth, too polished. Through the kitchen window, I saw Mrs. Keller in her pink robe, watering her flowers, humming to herself. Normal life, steps away. I wanted to knock on the glass, to shout. Instead, I sat still, coffee cooling in my hands. Mark pulled a chair out and sat across from me. His smile was thinner now, his words sharper. You know I've got your best interests, right? I mean, I'm your son. I looked at the apples on the counter. Their skins shone under the morning light. Too perfect. Too polished. The slip in my wallet pressed against my side. The voice from the night echoed in my ear. The envelope waited in the hall. And my son sat across from me, smiling thin, speaking of care while every word felt like a hand closing slowly around my throat. The house felt too still after Mark left. The apples sat untouched on the counter, their skins shining hard under the morning light. I poured the coffee down the sink, but the bitterness clung to my tongue. Then came the sound of steps on the stairs. Slow, careful. For a moment my chest froze. I thought he had come back. But when I turned, it was Emily, my oldest granddaughter, her socks sliding on the wood. Grace was just behind her, clutching the banister, eyes round. "Grandpa?" Emily's voice was soft but steady. I forced a smile. "You two awake already?" They nodded, too quickly. Emily clutched her tablet to her chest. Grace leaned close and whispered, "But not quiet enough." "He didn't see us," she said. Emily's face tightened. She looked at me, lowering her voice. "Grandpa, last night, we heard something." The clock in the kitchen ticked loud, each second a push against the silence. "What did you hear?" I asked. Emily swallowed. "Dad was on the phone. We were supposed to be asleep, but we heard him. He said he almost got you to sign something. That it didn't work. But next time?" She hesitated. Next time he'd have to be more radical. Her words hit harder than the knock on the door that morning. I stared at them, two girls in pajamas, hair tangled, eyes full of fear, and felt both weaker and stronger at once. Outside, a school bus groaned to a stop, brakes squealing, children laughing as they climbed aboard. The sound carried across the street, cheerful and ordinary. Too ordinary for what I had just heard. Emily slowly turned the tablet around. On the screen, a small red icon glowed in the corner of a saved file. She had recorded him. His voice was trapped inside. I didn't press play. Not yet. Just knowing it was, there was enough. I looked at my granddaughters, then at the apples on the counter, red and polished as if waiting. If my son could whisper about ending me, what else was he willing to do out loud? I hadn't wanted to remember that night. But Emily's words, more radical, pushed it back into my chest, like a stone I couldn't spit out. The cab. The seat under me, worn. Smelling of old leather and cigarettes. Streetlights blurred through the window, each one smearing into the next. My head felt heavy. Too heavy. My tongue was dry. There had been a strange taste in my mouth, bitter, metallic, like pennies pressed against my teeth. The driver kept glancing at me in the mirror. "You okay, sir?" His voice sounded far away, muffled, like I was underwater. I tried to answer, but my lips barely moved. My eyelids dropped like iron gates. Then nothing. Until the shaking. "Sir. Hey, sir, wake up." A hand on my shoulder, rough but careful. My eyes opened to bright lights overhead, too white, too sharp. I was lying on a gurney. The smell of antiseptic burned my nose. Voices echoed in the hall. "Possible collapse? Brought in by taxi." A nurse leaned close. "You're safe. You're at the hospital." Safe. But I knew better. The slip from the cab was still in my pocket when they changed me into the gown. Proof I had gotten in, proof I might not have gotten out. That night I lay awake, the steady beep of a monitor marking each beat of my heart. Each one felt borrowed. Through the window, I watched families walk in with flowers, balloons bouncing against wrists, children tugging at tired parents. Ordinary life, just across the glass. When they discharged me, the doctor smiled gently. "You were lucky," he said. "If you hadn't been brought in when you were, you might not have woken up at all." Lucky. I walked out of that hospital with the word ringing in my ears like a curse. Now, back in my kitchen, with two frightened girls and a glowing tablet screen, I understood. My son had already tried once, and he wasn't finished. The day dragged after the memory of the hospital. My body still felt weak. as if the bed I had left that morning was still pulling at me. Every step in the house carried a weight, and every room echoed with the beeping of machines that weren't there. By afternoon, the house was too quiet. Emily and Grace had gone to a friend's, their laughter leaving the walls too bare. Then I heard the crunch of tires on the driveway. A car door slammed. A suitcase rolled across the pavement. I moved to the window. It was Anna Mark's wife, my daughter-in-law. She was back from her trip. She walked quickly, still in her blazer, hair pinned up from travel. Her phone was pressed to her ear. "Yes, I just landed." "No. I'll check the emails tonight. Tell them I'll be in by morning." Not the words of someone plotting. Just a woman returning from work. I opened the door before she could knock. She blinked, surprised, then smiled. "Oliver, you're up. How are you feeling?" She hugged me lightly, quick but warm, the way she always had. The smell of airports and coffee clung to her clothes. "I'm fine," I said, though my voice rasped. She slipped off her heels, rubbing her ankle. The small sound of relief felt real. "Mark told me you were under the weather. I was worried." Under the weather? The words stung. That was the story he had chosen for her. I searched her face, waiting for a flicker of guilt. But there was none. Only concern. In the kitchen, the apples still sat in their paper bag, red skins catching the late light. Her eyes landed on them. "He bought those?" "He never remembers fruit when I ask." She laughed softly, shaking her head. She didn't see the weight in those apples. I forced a smile. "Yes, he brought them this morning." Her laughter faded. Her eyes stayed on mine. "Oliver, is there something I should know?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Outside, a dog barked. Another car passed. Ordinary sounds. But inside the house, a line had shifted. If she truly didn't know, then one day she would have to choose. That night, the house didn't rest. It listened. Every creak of wood, every breath of the heater seemed louder, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something to break. Anna unpacked upstairs, drawers sliding, zippers opening, the faint scrape of hangers on a rod. Normal sounds. But every one of them carried a question. What did she really know? I sat in the living room, the lamp humming faintly, its glow weak against the dark. The apples still sat on the counter, skins catching the dim light. Then I heard her voice, muffled, from the hallway. I rose slowly, careful with the floorboards, and moved closer. Her door was half shut, her voice low. "Mark, yes, I'm back. The girls are fine. Your father—" A pause, then softer, almost a whisper. "He looks weaker. But I don't know what you expected." My chest tightened. Her tone shifted. Sharper now. "You didn't tell me it was this bad. Why didn't you?" No, I don't want to talk about it over the phone. Just be careful what you're doing, Mark. If anyone finds out—" Silence. The sound of her pacing across the carpet. When she spoke again, her voice was firm. "You need to stop this. I mean it. Before it goes too far." The line clicked. Silence. I stepped back into the living room. The lamp buzzed, steady and low. The apples glowed red in their paper bag, like they were waiting. She had told him to stop, but if she was warning him, then she already knew too much. The next morning smelled of fresh coffee. Anna was already in the kitchen, her hair tied back, sleeves rolled up. She moved quickly, setting bowls on the table, calling the girls down with a voice that carried warmth. For a moment, the house looked ordinary. Sunlight fell across the counter, catching the red skins of the apples. The sound of spoons clinking against ceramic filled the room, but her words from last night still pressed against me like a stone in my chest. Before it goes too far. I sat across from her, watching her pour milk. She looked tired but calm, as if the night call had been forgotten. Maybe she thought no one had heard. "Anna," I said softly. She looked up, meeting my eyes. "Yes?" I let the pause hang. Then, "I know Mark has been under pressure. But sometimes, pressure makes people do dangerous things." Her hand stilled. The milk carton hovered above the bowl, then lowered slowly. "Oliver," she said carefully, "what exactly are you saying?" The clock ticked on the wall. The girls' footsteps pattered on the stairs, voices bubbling as they argued about something small. "I'm saying," I whispered, leaning closer, "I don't think you know everything he's done. And I don't think he's finished." Her face shifted just slightly. Not shock, not denial. Something between fear and realization. She glanced at the girls coming into the room and forced a smile, sliding their bowls toward them. We didn't speak again. The girls sat, bickering lightly, spoons clattering, their voices filling the silence. Anna's hands trembled just once as she placed a napkin by Grace's plate. She hadn't denied it. And that was enough. The house was quiet, but not at peace. Quiet can be dangerous. It fills the rooms, waiting to be broken. Anna worked upstairs, the soft tapping of keys drifting through the ceiling. The girls stayed in their room, their laughter muffled, thin against the weight pressing over the house. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the apples. Their skins had dulled, shadows crawling over them as the light shifted. Then small footsteps on the stairs, a whisper, a creak. Emily appeared first, holding something behind her back. Grace followed, eyes wide, checking the hall before she stepped closer. "Grandpa," Emily whispered, "we need to show you something." She pulled out her phone. The glow lit her face in the dim kitchen. She tapped play. Mark's voice filled the room. Low, flat, cold. He wouldn't sign. I tried, but he wouldn't. "Next time, I'll have to do more. Something stronger. Don't worry. He won't resist forever." The words sliced through me. My breath caught. The calm in his tone was worse than anger. It was certainty. Grace leaned close. We heard him. He was in the study. He didn't know we were at the door. We recorded it. The phone trembled in Emily's hands. I looked at them, two young faces carrying a truth no child should carry, yet they had done what no one else had. Above us, a door shut. Anna's steps moved across the floor, steady, unaware. I reached across the table, lowering Emily's phone gently. "Keep this safe," I whispered. My voice was steady, though my chest shook inside. "And don't tell anyone." "Not yet." They nodded, solemn now, the weight of the secret pressing them down. The kitchen clock ticked on. The apples sat in silence, dull red in the fading light. The girls had given me proof. But it wasn't just proof of what he'd done. It was a warning of what he was ready to do next. And this time he wouldn't stop at words. That night, the house carried two kinds of silence, one upstairs, one down. Anna's movements drifted through the ceiling. Drawers sliding. Water running in the bathroom. The girls whispered in their room, their voices faint under blankets. I sat in the armchair, the lamp casting a pale circle of light. My chest felt heavy, my breath uneven. The recording wouldn't leave me, it played in my head, over and over. Mark's words didn't fade. They waited for me in every shadow. Then came the sound of her footsteps on the stairs. Slow, careful. She appeared in the doorway, arms folded, her face shadowed by the hall light. "You're still awake," she said softly. "I don't sleep well anymore," I answered. My voice was calm, though every muscle ached from holding it steady. She crossed the room and sat across from me. The chair creaked under her weight. The clock ticked steadily in the corner, louder than it should have been. "Anna," I said finally, "what would you do if someone in this house was planning something against me?" Her eyes flicked to mine, quick and sharp, before softening. "That's a strange question." "Not so strange," I said quietly. "Not anymore." Her fingers twisted in her lap. She looked down, then away. "I don't want trouble, Oliver," she whispered. "I just want the girls to be safe." The words landed heavier than any denial. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. One of the girls shifted in bed. Anna stood suddenly, smoothing her sleeves. "You should rest. Good night." She left the room without looking back. The lamp buzzed, steady in the silence. Her words still hung in the air. She hadn't defended him. She hadn't defended me either. Silence was not safety. It was a choice. And choices have consequences. The next evening, the house froze before the door even opened. The sound of keys at the lock. The shift of weight on the porch, everyone heard it. The girls stopped whispering on the stairs. Anna's hands stilled over the dishes. Even the lamp's hum seemed louder. Then the door swung wide. Mark stepped inside, his smile stretched, his voice too light. "Dad? You awake?" He carried a paper bag, the smell of fried chicken spilling into the room, greasy and heavy. He set it on the table with a thud. "Brought dinner," he said, his eyes flicking around the room, too fast to be casual. I stayed in the armchair, the lamp casting its pale circle. My hands didn't move from the armrests. Anna wiped the counter once, twice, 3 times. She didn't look at him. The girls slipped upstairs, quiet as shadows, the boards creaking under their bare feet. Mark pulled out a chair and sat down, tapping the table with restless fingers. "Long day," he said, his voice still carrying that fake ease. "But things are looking up. Real soon." He glanced at me, then at the bag. "You should eat, Dad. Keep your strength up." The clock ticked in the corner. The smell of grease turned bitter in my nose. I didn't move. For a moment, his smile held. Then it broke. Just a flicker, but enough. And in that instant, the mask was gone. What sat across from me wasn't a son bringing food. It was the threat itself, waiting. Mark leaned back in his chair, the paper bag still unopened between us. Grease had already seeped through, leaving dark stains on the table. The smell of fried chicken hung in the air, thick and sour, as if the house itself knew what was about to be said. He folded his arms, his smile gone now. His voice dropped lower. "You know, Dad," he said slowly, "things would be easier if you just trusted me." The words weren't sharp. They were soft. Too soft. Like a hand on the shoulder that pushed, instead of comforted. Anna stood at the sink, her back to us. The towel in her hands twisted again. She wasn't washing anymore. Just holding on to something. I sat in the armchair, the lamp buzzing faintly beside me. My throat felt dry. My chest tight. But I didn't move. Mark leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his eyes locked on mine. "I'm trying to help you, trying to help all of us, but if you keep resisting, you're only making it harder." His fingers tapped against the wood. 3 taps. A pause. 3 taps again, like a code. Or a countdown. Above us, the faintest creak of floorboards. Light footsteps. The girls were awake. They were listening. Mark didn't notice. His gaze didn't leave me. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "You don't have forever, Dad. Decisions need to be made. One way or another." The words cut colder than if he had shouted. Anna turned then, just a little, enough for me to catch her eyes. Fear flickered there. Not confusion, not denial, fear. She looked away quickly, setting the towel down with shaking hands. The clock ticked in the corner. Steady. Louder with every second. The bag of food sat untouched, the grease spreading further across the table. Mark leaned back once more, exhaling slowly, as if he had said enough. His smile didn't return. I sat frozen, my hands gripping the armrests of the chair. My heart beat heavy in my chest, but my face stayed still. He thought he was pressing me, controlling the pace. But I wasn't the only one who had heard him. The girls had heard too. Children don't forget words like those. And neither would I. The next morning the house was too quiet. Anna moved through the kitchen like a shadow, making coffee she barely touched. The girls sat at the table, cereal bowls in front of them, their eyes down. Mark wasn't there. His absence didn't calm the house, it made it worse. I sat by the window, the newspaper open but unread. The light outside was sharp, too clean for how the air inside felt. When the phone rang, the sound cut through the silence like glass. Anna answered, her voice clipped. "Yes, he's here." She glanced at me, then handed me the receiver. A pause. Then the lawyer's voice, polished, cold. "Mr. Hayes Sr., your son mentioned you were prepared to settle the estate. He'll bring the documents by this week." My stomach turned. My name, my home, spoken like items on a checklist. I didn't argue. I simply set the phone back down. When I looked up, the girls were watching me. Their faces pale, too serious for their age. That night, Mark returned. His steps were heavy, his mood darker. He didn't bring food this time. He went straight to the kitchen. His voice sharp, low. "I don't care how he feels," he whispered to Anna. "It has to be done. If he won't sign, I'll find another way." Anna froze. Her hand rested on the counter, her eyes wide. Above us, a door creaked. The girls. They weren't just listening now. I caught the faint glow of a phone, the small red light blinking. Mark kept talking, not knowing. "The debts won't wait. This is my only chance. He can make it easy, or I'll make it final." Every word was recorded. And in that moment, I knew my silence hadn't made me weak. It had made me dangerous. The following evening, Anna made dinner. The smell of roasted chicken filled the house, warm and heavy, but it didn't bring comfort. Steam fogged the kitchen window, blurring the night outside. The knives clinked softly against plates, each sound too sharp in the silence. The girls pushed food around with their forks, the gravy untouched, the mashed potatoes cooling. Mark tried to act normal, his tone too casual. "How was school today?" he asked, forcing a smile. His eyes darted from one daughter to the other. "Fine," one of them said quickly. The other only shrugged. They didn't look at him. I watched from my chair at the head of the table. Quiet. Patient. My fork scraped once against the plate, the sound louder than it should have been. Halfway through the meal, Anna set her fork down. The silver hit the plate with a soft clink that echoed. Her hands were steady, but her eyes weren't. "Mark," she said, her voice calm but firm, "your father should decide things in his own time. Pressuring him, it isn't right." The air froze. Even the clock on the wall seemed to hesitate between ticks. Mark's fork hovered above his plate, his jaw clenched. Then he gave a short laugh, thin, hollow, a sound with no warmth. "You think I'm pressuring him?" His eyes cut to me, sharp, then back to her. "I'm the one trying to keep this family together." Anna's shoulders lifted with a breath. She didn't back down. "Families don't force each other into decisions," she said softly. "They support. They wait." The words landed heavy, and the silence that followed was worse than shouting. Mark leaned back in his chair, arms folded, his stare colder now. His smile was gone. "So that's it," he muttered. "You've chosen his side." The girls exchanged a quick glance, their spoons frozen halfway to their mouths. No one spoke. The clock ticked on, louder with every second, like time itself was closing in on him. I stayed still, my hands folded, my eyes fixed on the plate. I didn't need to move. I didn't need to speak. Because the shift had already begun. Anna wasn't with him anymore. The children weren't with him. And Mark, he didn't even realize the walls were closing in. Next day, the light came in thin strips through the blinds. Anna set an envelope on the table. The girls sat close, phones face down. "Play it," she said. Emily tapped the screen. His voice moved through the kitchen, low and sure. "If he won't sign, I'll find another way." No one answered. The fridge hummed. His cup rattled on the saucer. Days later, the apples on the counter had dulled. A spare key sat in the glass bowl, alone. The envelope was sealed now and put away. I made tea. I watched the window. The house held its breath, and then let it out. Then, I sat at the table with the cab slip in my wallet, and the room finally quiet. No speeches, no noise. Just the sound of the clock learning our new time. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. Thank you for watching Final Truth. Your support means the world to us. If this story kept you hooked until the end, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Every day we bring you new tales of family secrets, hidden motives, and twists you won't see coming. Turn on notifications so you never miss the moment the truth comes out. And remember, here at Final Truth, Every ending is just the start of another story.